Hey folks, today I'm going to share my take on the leaderboard in Diablo 4, how it really is and how it will be, in my not-so-modest opinion as a Diablo series veteran. That's enough for the intro. New off here, let's go. Leaderboard is a tower, and a tower is a pit in reverse. That is, a pit goes down, and a tower goes up. That's obvious. Okay, let me talk about that later. For now, let's talk about the interesting stuff. Side note on. I see a lot of people don't understand a simple thing. Developers only have two real options. First, allow trading and fight duping. The second path, ban trading and fight botting. That's more or less how it is, with nuances, of course. Side note off. How often to update the leaderboard? Update the leaderboard every 2 weeks, or don't update it at all, like in Diablo 3. Like the leaderboard starts at the season's beginning and just stays that way until the end. Actually, it doesn't really matter, as long as you know when and where to look. Overall, the picture for the whole season won't change much with any way of displaying the tables in-game. First week, the top is mostly streamers with an audience. Some people have hundreds of mythic items by the third day. Some will have 100 for the whole season. For the current season 11, it looks like this. Viewers from the stream call the streamer for a mythic prankster run. And of course, they give away good items and gold for free. Second week, that's the first category of players, streamers with an audience, plus players who bought items for real money. Runs for the mythic prankster are also sold, if you didn't know. Not the mythic items themselves, of course, but a slot in the party. Runes, gear, keys for Uber bosses are sold and bought. But streamers with a big audience still have more resources in the first week or two. The third week is a mix of the first two groups, but now hardcore grinders start to slowly appear. People playing 15 hours a day. These can be truly obsessed players, or people playing in shifts, like two brothers for example. Or it can be bots. After a month, the first three categories of players mix together, and the boundaries between them smooth out. And only after about a month and a half or two do less active players start climbing the leaderboard. These are people playing 3 to 4 hours a day, without the resources of streamers and/or without spending money. That was, in short, a description of the leaderboard structure for the first half of the season. Now a bit about the unshakable. You know, there's a law. It's called the law of diminishing returns. It does not matter what you or I think about it. It's a law, and it works in games too. And its essence is simple. Each next improvement requires exponentially more resources and/or time. Simply put, your gear improves quickly at first, after a week slower, after another week even slower. And in the end, we all come to the fact that the closer to perfection, the harder it is to get a better item. In practice, in the context of the game and the leaderboard, this means that the more time passes from the start of something, the smaller the gap in something, in our case in gear. Gear will be very different for players of the same skill level who played 50 and 100 hours. But the difference will be much smaller at 300 versus 200 hours. I'm not a theorist, I'm a practitioner. Starting from 2016, I didn't just play games, I literally lived in Diablo 3 for over 4 years. A couple of years after starting active play, I was already a regular in the top rankings. I'm saying that because I know exactly how it works. Skilled players, the part of them who don't have much time to play, start appearing in the tops a couple of months after the season starts. They play around 3 hours a day, and a more or less acceptable push gear only appears for them after a couple of months. I'm saying this because the less time has passed since the season start, the less relevant the leaderboard we see is. I'm not saying something is good or bad. Good or bad, that's an evaluation. I'm not evaluating, I'm saying how it is. Look, how Blizzard does it in 2-week segments or one table for the whole season doesn't matter. For a simple reason, what the developers don't do, the players will do. Making a leaderboard on a separate site without splitting into 2-week segments but one for the whole season is a piece of cake. Making an additional filter by region is also not a problem. So the moral is, you don't need to be a programmer or spend any significant money here. Therefore, what Blizzard doesn't do, other people will do based on data from the in-game leaderboard. In Diablo 3, there was no global leaderboard for all regions. There were only separate region ladders. To see, for example, Asia, you had to log into the Asian server and look there. Players quickly made websites, more than one, that combined data from all regions. Now the picture is the opposite. In-game data for all regions is together. And if developers do not add region splits, players will do it themselves. What we have now, released as a beta, is not a beta. It is a beta for a beta. Nothing is balanced. It is still unclear which direction the developers will go. They could go towards a leaderboard with huge randomization, that is, random layout of the location, mob compositions, mob behavior, pylons, or they could go towards unification, that is, a small variety of location types, a limited set of mobs, and so on. The challenge rift in Diablo 3 is the extreme form of such a leaderboard where everything is the same for everyone. Location, build, gear, mobs, and pylons. That is, there's a huge room for maneuver, from total randomization to complete static setup. And here I want to say the main idea of this whole video, which is why I decided to make it. What the leaderboard will ultimately be like does not depend at all on the most active or moderately active Diablo 4 players. The most active audience of the game is 1% of the total number, and their opinion does not interest Blizzard at all. Not at all in any way. Another 10% of active players also do not matter. That is, the most active part of the players has very little influence on everything that happens. The main audience plays for a week, maximum 2 from the start of the season, and the efforts of any company, not just Blizzard, are aimed at increasing the playtime of this part of the audience, and also at those who don't play at all. That is, everything, including the direction of the leaderboard's development, will move not for already active players, but for those who play little, and also with the aim of engaging new buyers of Ultimate Editions, Battle Passes, and cosmetic items. So predictions about the direction of the leaderboard's development are pointless. They will tweak the settings this way and that, take metrics, and introduce what best contributes to user retention. There's nothing unusual here. Everyone does this. For a more relevant sample, the top and bottom 10% of extreme values are cut off. That is, the 10% most active players, and the 10% of those who can't be dragged into the game are simply ignored in any metric calculations. Got it? It's not that I hate Blizzard. That's how statistics works. You can keep writing clownish wishes from the PTR test forever. For example, add a blacksmith near the Uber bosses. Blizzard doesn't care about such wishes. They'll add a blacksmith there in the end. They'll say, well, you asked, we did it. And the fact that by that time there will be a loot filter in the game, or the Uber boss activity itself will become very secondary, none of the broad mass of players who play for a week per season will even notice. And the fact that experienced players will laugh and make fun, the developers don't care either. Who has the biggest viewer reach for a particular game? The partnered streamers of that game. Again, I'm not evaluating whether it's good or bad, I'm saying how it is. And since that's how it is, it would be good to say that loot pickup for Uber bosses is an integral part of engagement in that activity. And adding a blacksmith there would simply break that activity. Understand? No, you do not. And that is fine. What is sad is that series and genre veterans also do not understand this. Here I'd like to ask, what will happen after introducing a loot filter? How will they diversify the summon, kill, summon loop of Uber bosses? Since I am already talking, let us imagine for a second that Blizzard personally asked me to outline the main direction for ladder development in Diablo 4. The first thing I would do, kill fishing. Fishing is the search for a starting location, an open location. But an open location is far from everything. The second, no less significant factor is the mob composition. That is, which specific mobs by type and affixes in what proportions will be in the location. For a competitive result, the mobs should be profitable for experience, or be summoners, or be melee and follow you well. That is, you aggro the mobs and they follow you. Compositions with a lot of mages, archers, or spearmen are not suitable. You can't set a good time on them even on an excellent open location. Also, the composition should not have useless mobs, for example, spearmen. They follow poorly, hit hard, give little experience. Again, for mobs to follow, you need an open location. And not just open. Places with islands and various bushes where mobs get stuck shouldn't be there either. Playing on locations with narrow passages is completely useless. If you enter and see a corridor map with narrow openings, just go back to town immediately. Don't even try to do anything. The mobs there will just get stuck and won't be able to move normally to you. Pylons in the right places and at the right time are also important. Affixes on elites also shouldn't vary too much, otherwise with a prevalence of some powerful ones you can't survive, with a prevalence of others, weak ones, clearing the tower becomes too easy. So the larger the spread of all these values, the more variance there is, the more skill plus luck you need. And the hours of grinding, of course, the less variation in values, the less skill and luck you need, but the higher the dependency on gear. And that's also bad. We don't consider the challenge rift option in principle because we tested it in D3 and it's not popular. Something similar, static and the same for everyone existed before in Diablo 4, but it didn't catch on. They removed it. So it turns out if Blizzard asked me, so how should it be? Tell us and we'll do it. And I would answer them, no guys, decide for yourselves. In any case, there will be those unhappy with the balance. In any case, complaints from players will fly. And in any case, no developer will listen to me. They might listen in an indie studio. In corporations, they have their own measure, metrics justifying a particular decision, metrics of player engagement. Engagement equals profit. Players, that's not the 10% active ones. They are already in the pocket, but the least active part of the community. No one cares about the opinions and wishes of experienced and active players. Although I think I've already talked about that. So what should we do then, the developers might ask. Well, what if they really ask? And I will tell them, fire the incompetent ones. Fire those incompetents who are responsible for the lack of progress in the pits this season. Fire those who lie about fixing backtracking before every season. Fire the fools who seriously discuss how and where to increase the animation speed of doors in nightmare dungeons instead of just removing them and closing the issue. Here's a list of incompetent people, or rather parameters by which these incompetents are identified, I'll give you. Regarding the tower, I have them too. Only an incompetent person could suggest putting shields on pylons. Seriously, guys, is it really that bad for you? So what is the tower, and why couldn't the pit be made a competitive activity? Well, Blizzard plans to keep the pit as part of seasonal activities. That is, add all sorts of seasonal activities with loot and other rewards there. And the tower is a purely competitive activity, without rewards in the form of loot or gold. In my opinion, this makes sense. Most players declare indifference to competitive content. Well, then don't go there. They left the pit for you, with rewards and everything. So the discontent of non-competitive players is not understandable in principle. Guys, what's wrong? If you don't want to be on the leaderboard, play like you did before. Nothing has changed for you. As for competitive players, no one cares about you. As I said above, they will try a bunch of things and settle on what provides the greatest engagement for the largest number of players. There are no competitive games in this genre besides Diablo 4, so we have no choice. And it's not such a bad game. I'll even say more, Diablo 4 is a good game. As someone who deeply analyzed Diablo 3 down to the smallest details, I see progress, I see many improvements. And what pushes me to complain is not that the developers are so bad, they are normal, but that I clearly understand that 20% of efforts bring 80% of profits. I understand that no one will do anything for the sake of a tiny part of hardcore grinders, but I still cannot accept it. And since I'm so stupid that I can't come to terms with the obvious and inevitable, I say what I think. If not me, then who? What if you're not subscribed yet and are missing out on such streams of consciousness? Fix that urgently. Thanks. Now about server lag. If you suddenly decided that lags when playing in a group and sometimes solo too are a temporary phenomenon, I'm in a hurry to disappoint you. This is forever. If you didn't understand what lags I'm talking about, then everything is fine. For 80% of players, this is not relevant. To avoid lags at high tower levels, you need to invest in optimizing the game, locations, and add servers. And since 80% of players in Diablo 4 will never see these lags because they won't climb to a high enough tower level, Blizzard won't waste money. I'm not making anything up, I'm saying how it is. That's how it was in Diablo 3. When trying to set a new record, everyone faced the impossibility of doing it due to lags. Complaints were massive. Blizzard ignored this problem as long as they could. If I'm not mistaken, they were silent for over a year, and then stated, I don't remember the exact quote, but the gist is, players at level 60 don't encounter any problems. And the records at that time were around level 130. That's such a slap in the face. I'm not making anything up. And Rob knows this very well. And Wudijo knows. They played actively at that time. So don't expect smooth gameplay at high levels, especially in a group. It will never be. Yes, an important note. In Diablo 3, players on Asian servers were allocated more resources. This is related to gaming culture. Asian players are more focused on organized group play than Europeans or Americans. Asia is a profitable region. You can't really anger them. America is the home region. We'll also allocate a bit more resources. Europe, on the other hand, was not a priority back then and will not be now. I really want to be wrong, really. But I can't ignore the entire history of the company, which has made a giant journey before my eyes. From an almost independent studio made of game fans to a part of a large company, which itself is part of a corporation. It's not about games or quality anymore, it's about money and marketing. Although, I repeat, Diablo 4 is a good and quite competitive game. I am trying to protect you from inflated expectations and the disappointment that follows. Yes, and where are the details about completing the tower? What I like, what I don't like, what to add and what to change. If you have such questions, then you didn't watch this video or didn't understand anything. Don't be upset. Watching pieces and missing details and context is normal. That seems to be all on my vision of the leaderboard. I hope I didn't forget anything. If I forgot, write a comment. If I didn't forget, write. What a great guy I am. I'd appreciate a like and subscription. Thanks for watching. Bye.